Cool. Live stream has started and I'm going to be sharing the link with a couple of folks. So before I do, I'm just going to keep my title card up till I do it. All right, so sharing there and also in the open source WordPress Slack channel. Cool. So now that I've done that, there are so many things going on right now. I have to figure this out. Okay. All right. Links have been shared. Hopefully I can jump to my camera. We'll see how this looks like. No, that did not work. Oh, there we go. All right. Every single time I jump to my live camera, we get this kind of inception moment just because I don't have a separate monitor or a separate computer or something dedicated to this live stream thing. Anyway, I'll figure that out. Happy Monday. Hope you're doing wonderful. It is 1:42 p.m. here in Toronto, Canada. What is the weather? I don't know. It is something. 18 degrees. And today, hopefully you can see my screen. I made quite a bit of progress on the design guidelines for the WordPress, the Make WordPress site. The proposal, whoops, there's a little typo here. I think I fixed that. Nope, it is not running, so I will fire this up. So while that is happening, going to give a quick little update. Yes, so I've made some progress on the design guidelines website, added a couple of pages, set up the overall shell, that is the layout, got this nav thing working, did some markdown stuff, just a bunch of things to make this thing look a little bit more presentable, I would say. It's starting to look like an actual site, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to jump to the title screen again, just because I want to double check to make sure all the live stream things are working. Bear with me for one moment. All right, come on. This is not working like how I'd expect it to work. All right, so here's what I have for my very scrappy live stream kind of setup. I have a personal MacBook 12-inch computer on the side, and that is acting as my monitoring and live chat thing. All right, so it's fine. I think it's fine. It's live. It's good. Hopefully it's back on my camera. I just got to double check. All right, it is. All right. So what are we going to be building today? So today, on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see a little card that says hello. That is a very rough placeholder for the thing that I would like to build. And I can give a quick demo of the thing that I would like to add. So what you're seeing right here, this is an internal automatic, it's also, anybody can hit this URL and see it. Kind of guideline thing I created for colors and components and so on. And portions of this was the inspiration for the design guidelines that I'm creating for WordPress.org. Actually borrowed quite a bit of code from here in order to rebuild this bit. I had to fine tune it and tweak it, of course, and the colors are completely different. They are from the CodePen, which I believe are the latest and greatest colors variants that we have, so that's my source of truth for now. And the main thing I want to build is this little, I don't even know what to call it, this sidebar thing on the side. So anytime you click on a color, it'll show you some of the color information, the contrast score, whether to use light text on it or dark text to receive the highest contrast score. And I believe the accessibility requirements for this is AA or AA+. I can't remember for this. And what other information can I supply? I can also give the RGB and maybe an RGBA kind of thing, just a very fast way for you to copy and paste it. Also the hex code and I guess HSL, that would be handy. Why not? So I can present a couple of chunks from this sidebar into here, and that's what I'm going to be building today. So let's see if this works. I purchased some, what the heck do you even call this? Apple AirPlay software to be able to mirror my iPad onto my computer. And that way I can draw stuff and you can see me draw stuff. All right. Okay, this is working. 6, 742. You can see my iPad? Yay, you can see my iPad. Great. All right. All right. Nope. There we go. Man, technology is hard. So today, I'm going to be building this thing. I'm going to be drawing out some ideas that I have. I typically work best by drawing things out. I'm a very visual kind of person, thinker. And that's just how I roll. All right, nope, gonna adjust this a little bit. So the application you're seeing right here is Procreate. I don't necessarily need to do this on Procreate. I often just do this with pencil and paper or marker and paper. But for live streaming reasons, I'm gonna be doing it with digital software. So we have our website with a thing, and then we have some thing, and then we want to render this little box here. And anytime we select a different color, if I click on one of these things, it needs to update the color information here. So what I'm gonna, from a design standpoint, let's talk about design. So I'm gonna draw some information from, or not information, some inspiration from this thing. So I think a title of the thing would be good, and also a little color palette preview. Maybe literally copying this contrast score, because this was pretty good. Use dark text, and we have some values with some hex, some RGB. What else? We can maybe get like an RGB, RGBA or something like that. So we have a little box here. Can you minimize it? I guess so. So the ability to minimize it and to be able to handle overflow. So erase. My God. Bigger eraser. I need one of these. What? Hang on. Okay. One of these. So this is the design. It's a great design. This is the design. Here we go. Yay. Alrighty. That's the design of the thing we want to build today. Cool. So from JS architecture standpoint, how do we even do this? So with more traditional jQuery-ish kind of non-React kind of ways, you just basically have the code living somewhere that kind of knows how to talk between I'm gonna write another layer. So yeah, so you basically have some sort of code somewhere that knows how to talk between various elements here to update various elements here, and you would just bind it randomly. The React way of doing it, and the site is powered by React, by the way. It's using Gatsby. The React way of doing it is not too dissimilar. So how you would do it is somewhere up here, somewhere vaguely up here, you need a thing, a single thing that these two elements know how to talk to. Like so. This inside of the world of React is using an API called context. So if you're familiar with libraries like Redux underneath the hood uses context to do its thing, and you would connect components together, meaning somewhere you have your context up here, right? Layer, and some arbitrary tree later you have your little guy down here. This guy needs to connect with this guy somehow. So that's how you would use Redux. In Redux you would have they would have the connect HOC, the hawk, the higher order component, and then you put your component inside and it knows how to do its thing. It knows how to bind them together. So we kind of have to do something very similar here, except I'm not going to be using Redux because it seems a little bit overkill for the project right now. It's a great library, I'm a big fan of it, but in order to keep this as simple as possible and to make it, a little bit approachable for folks who want to contribute to this thing, we're not going to be using Redux. We're just going to be using out of the box context with the hook of use context that you get with the latest and greatest React 16 point something out of the box. So that's what we're going to be doing. Shrinking this. This is why I love Procreate for like doodling my ideas, because I can just like do digital things like shrink things and delete things, cut and copy, that kind of stuff. So this higher level thing, usually inside of your application, which essentially is what this is, this site, you would have some sort of provider thing. So I think I've already created an app provider that is the thing that manages the communication between the color palette, which is one of these little shades of color, CP, I'm just going to call it color palette, and this info box, info. It is the thing that will know how to communicate between these two. And that's important because when you click on this guy, right, this thing needs to send information up here, be it, hey, the user has clicked on WordPress blue, and app provider is like, no, don't worry about it, I got this. It updates a little bit of data it has inside, and because it's updated, React does its thing to like comb through all of your components to see what it is it needs to re-update. And because the info box that we're creating, this guy, is paying attention to it, it will then refresh as well. And the info box will be, oh, well, you were on gray something something something, but now you're on blue? No probs, I got this. I can take care of this. So then it will do the blue, and that's how this cycle works. Between data flow and actions, communicating data flow and actions between the higher order kind of manager kind of guy, the provider that lives somewhere up there, and your little components within. And yeah, let's build it. This is the data side, which is important. This is the data side, the JS side. Nope, that's not. And this is the design side. So what I like to do is I actually like to build them or develop them in isolation. It just makes it a little bit easier, and it forces you to approach things and think about things in a slightly different way. And hopefully this works, I have this set up already. Come on, just checking my little laptop computer. I don't see anything happening in the live chat. Maybe no one's chatting. It's perfectly fine. Am I still live? Hopefully I'm still live. I think I'm live. I can't tell anymore. Am I live? Yes, I am. Great. Right. So that's our plan. I'm going to close this now because I have this on the side, and I can just show this again later. Oh, no, just take a screenshot of it. That way you can refer to it. Technology. Screenshot. Okay. My mouse is gone. This is bad. All right. I don't see my mouse. Oh, there we go. Okay. Close this, close iPad to conserve battery, and let's start doing this thing. So right now I have my local dev fired up, and I have this hello guy, which is a placeholder for the thing I want to build. All right, this is the code. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see. So the thing I'm going to be using to do the UI development is sorry about that, is a dedicated UI development, I don't even know what you call this anymore. A dedicated UI dev environment called Storybook. Storybook is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of it. Been using it for years to do dedicated UI development, and it's great because you're able to look, focus, and work on the UI in isolation. And I'm so glad that it's become so popular that it's just a thing that you would use, just like VS Code or anything else. It's just part of your UI development workflow. And I've added it to the design guideline site so we can start using it right away. And that's the thing that I'm going to be using to develop the UI for the color pop-up box thing. Okay. I have a command to run Storybook. Yarn Storybook. I think that's how you do it. Great. It's going to do its thing, it's going to build its stuff, and it's going to fire up Storybook and load it into a dedicated URL. So for my local URLs, I have the doc site, which is here, and my Storybook site, which is here. So jumping to my code, I just called it color info. And close this, it's not needed. And What this is that there is a dedicated stories.js file that Storybooks pays attention to, and I'm just telling it to render, hey, just render my component into here, which it does. So now I can do dedicated UI development for this component only that has nothing to do with this site at all, which is great. So this is really handy for if you can imagine components that live inside of like modals or things that in a traditional application require you to click through a bunch of things in order for you to open it up. Like click on the nav menu, open this modal, and in this modal open up a tab, something like that. This rapid charges how fast you're able to iterate through your changes, just because every single time you make a change in your code, it live reloads, right? If you have a traditional app environment, sure, your app live reloads, which is fantastic. However, if you wanted to see your UI again, you'd have to go through that flow. Open a nav, open your modal, open a tab, see it again, and repeat for every single time you change your code. And that's very tedious. Whereas here, I can just see the thing immediately right away. And not only that, if I give it certain properties, I can force it to be in certain states. So I can force it to always be in an error state if I'm working on error UI. It's wonderful. It's very, very fast. Streamlines it a whole ton. It's also fantastic for prototyping certain things. I've actually built entire apps inside of Storybook before, and it works great. Anyway, enough of Storybook. Gonna get into the actual UI development now. So right here, what you're seeing is I have a dedicated card and I have a positioner. All the positioner does right now is that it just positions it to the bottom right hand corner, which is where I want it to live. So if I was working right now, I'm not working with any kind of component kit or component UI kit or anything whatsoever. If I was, ideally I would like to leverage like a modal or something to just render this, because it would just make it a lot faster. I wouldn't have to think about positioning things or anything like that. None of that nonsense. But since I'm not, I'm just going to be using this kind of thing. I would use WordPress Components for something like this, which is great because WordPress Components powers Gutenberg's UI. However, at its current state, WordPress Components isn't something that I can easily leverage outside. It's not too friendly to be able to do things like this, where it's just like, hey, I just want the modal component from WordPress Components and I just want those styles. It doesn't work like that as of today, but hopefully that'll change in the near future perhaps. Anyway, so now I'm going to be working on this. What is the UI that I would like to build? And just a heads up, for these live coding sessions, I didn't code any of this beforehand. So all the fumbling and all the mistakes that you see me making along the way, it's all genuine, just because I'm doing this for the first time ever, literally. Cool, thanks Jeff. Jeff says it's still live. This is my little side computer I'm using for for live chat things. Okay, right, so I need to build that little UI there with a box and a close. I gotta have a close icon. All right, for the first iteration of this thing, I'm just gonna skip the closing bit for now. Just have a box that can grow to a certain size or whatever. So I've already coded up a little card component, which I've rendered inside of here, which takes care of this UI around it. A nice box shadow and everything, cool. Now I'm gonna add stuff inside my card. So right now it just says hello. Hi. Whoop, the typo. Hi, so now I should say hi, great. So what do I need? I'm just gonna construct the very basic UI right here from style components. Const card UI equals style div, and then it does stuff. Background, purple, great. So now I should see a purple thing, great. So I've already done quite a few things. My video is obscuring the UI. Oh, shoot. Thanks, Jeff. All right. So the UI is right here. You can't see me point to it, but the UI is right here. So cool. This makes it a little bit easier. Check this out. All right, I'm gonna create a dedicated story just for this card so you can see it on the live stream. I am going to import the card from card. Yeah. And now, where is it? I'm going to go to my storybook and I'm just going to load the card. And without the position, and then we can just see the card by itself in all of its glory. All right. Card default, open, cool. So here is here's the card now. I am going to add a couple more things. Import styled from style components, and I'm going to positioner UI. It's a div, and the div is a position fixed, and it's the top is 0, left is 0, and I'm going to render the card inside of my positioner. And now you can see it all in all of its glory. All right, so now instead of it positioning normally on the bottom left, I'm making it positioning in the bottom right. It's now going to be on the top left, which you can now see. And because this is Storybook and I'm just working with this preview UI, it's wonderful because it does not affect the actual application whatsoever. I am just looking at the card in isolation in Storybook and I can work with it and it's just fine and it's great. So I've already done a few things. So in this project I'm using Styled Components. Styled Components is a wonderful CSS and JS library. You can make a totally separate video. I've made several videos talking about CSS and JS. Styled Components is one, Emotion is another. I'm a big fan of both. For this project, I'm going to be using Styled Components just because it's great, it's easy, and it keeps the API, the way you write things, relatively similar to normal CSS. So folks who have never used it before, the learning curve isn't very steep. It's not as steep. So I've done a couple of things here. I've created a dedicated component, this card UI, from a div, and I've rendered it inside. So one pattern that I like to do is I like to add the word UI after creating a styled component. The reason why is because when I'm looking at the code, it clearly indicates whether something is a dedicated kind of React component that I've added lots of like props and all this stuff to, or if it's just like an out-of-the-box styled component. UI is a very simple kind of way to label it, just so that I can clearly see what's going on. Some people, they like to do something like this, styled card, letting folks know, hey, this is the same thing as a styled component, but it's a card. This works relatively well. It achieves the same effect. However, I don't like this particular method. The reason why is because if you have a lot of these guys, styled card body, styled whatever, your markup starts looking very blended. It looks the same just because everything starts with the word styled. However, if I change it back to styled or card UI, it feels a lot more natural. Just from looking at it, I can understand this is a card, this is a something, this is a something else. So that's what I'm going to go with for now. Card UI, and I've rendered hello. It's rendering right there. So I need it to have a certain size. So I would like a width, a fixed width always. I don't know, 300. 300 sounds good. Might be a little wide. Let's just make it 250 is something like that. All right, cool. I don't need it. RGB. I'm just gonna make this black that's a little lighter and I can see. Great. So another thing that I really like to do in this kind of workflow as well is, right now I don't know what the thing is really supposed to look like. All I have is this drawing. If you're working with a designer, typically, hopefully, they'll have something fully mocked up for you and you just need to translate that static UI into code, which makes it easier. Hopefully you have a bunch of little components that you can compose your UI in a very easy way. I don't have that luxury because I'm working on this all by myself, and I could take the time to like draw this out in Figma or Sketch or something like that, but I don't have the time for that. I'm just going to build it straight in the UI. And for me, going through this flow, it's not straight in the UI, sorry, straight into my code editor. And for me, going into this flow, I would say that this is, for me, it's similar to like sketching. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm just going to do whatever I can just to like kind of make it work and make and reduce the amount of mess I'm making along the way. That's basically what I'm doing. And I think it works just fine. So max height height is, I don't know, 480. I can refine these things as later. So right now it should look exactly the same. Great. I need a, let me just take a look at the existing UI that I have. I have a title, I have a little color palette, I have a contrast score, and I have something here. So I have a title. All right, cool. Const title UI is style.div. And yes, I know that this is not technically semantic. It should be an H1 or an H something. I know, I'll fix that. Font size. Again, sketching. Font size. I don't know, rem something. Yeah, this works. Great, cool. All right, color is, I don't know, WordPress blue. Great, so now I see a little guy up in here. Where is it? Here, WordPress blue. I'm gonna get rid of this background color now. I don't think I need it. Font weight, make it a little bolder. Bold. Make this a little bigger, get rid of that. All right, make this. All right, that looks pretty cool. So I do have a component that I've created before called Flexi. Flexi, oh my goodness, it's one of my favorite little patterns ever, in a way. It's something that I don't know if I invented it necessarily, but it's something I thought of years and years ago at my previous company, and it's stuck with me since. What Flexi is that it's a very simple way to align things within your UI. It leverages Flexbox, which is where it gets its name from, but it's able to render things usually, dang, I keep clicking that. Things like if you have a thumbnail or something on the left-hand side and you have a bunch of other things on the right-hand side, it knows how to handle that, and it automatically aligns things to the middle, which is all very common UI patterns. So it just takes care of that for you. It's a layout-based component. It does it very, very well. So I'm going to create my little swatch, which is this guy. I don't know what size that is. It's fine. 40, sure. Height. Border, radius. Okay, before I do, I'm just going to alphabetize this because I'm making a mess, but I'm not an animal. Come on. Swatch. So now I should see a little swatch thing with no, I'm going to make it the background of, give me a color. I don't know. Tomato. Nah, purple. Purple's fine. Nope, it needs to be a string. All right. Okay. Why are you complaining? Purple. Yeah, right, there we go. Great. So it's right there. It's working just fine. It's working just fine. Okay. So the title needs to be margin bottom. Again, sketching. We'll fix all this later. Here's the power of Flexi. So now I can have content snapping to the right-hand side, but it'll align itself to the very middle. Hello, like so. It automatically snaps to the, something is not right here. Give me a second. What's going on here? What's going on here? What? Oh, I broke my component. Block. Oh, that's why. Flex 1. That's the magic. There we go. Yeah. So it follows the pattern it uses is it has a container, which is Flexi, and it has two children, item and block. Blocks are things that take up arbitrary amounts of space. So here for my content, I can take up as much space as I want, and items are things with predefined widths. So in this case, it's a swatch. However, if you have an article and you have a thumbnail on the left-hand side and some arbitrary content on the right, your thumbnail, the size is typically predetermined. It's a width of 200 or whatever it is. And the idea for this pattern came from kind of how macOS handles this thing. So this guy, this little block I'm injecting here, that would be like a Flexi block. It takes up an arbitrary amount of space. And these little chunks in between are items. And you can put as many blocks and many items as you want next to each other, and they kind of know how to align themselves magically, because Flexbox is pretty cool. Anyway, that's what Flexi is. And now I am going to, let's see what I got. I need to render the contrast score and some other text down here. All right, cool. Contrast score. See, the reason why I'm sighing is because I really, really miss having lots of little components. Because for me, in coding this, each one of these things would be a component. It would be a text component. And then I would be able to say, hey, make this text muted, which will then render the color to be something else. You know what? I'm gonna do that. This is part of the whole coding experience. Making a mess, but also not doing a terrible job. So I do have a text component that I have somewhere in here, and I will. Oh, all right, fine. I will do a little bit just so I can render the text. I mean, I could arbitrarily write, font size something inside of my color info, but there's just something inside me that won't allow me to do this. All right, fine. Export default text is props return. It is a const text UI equals a span text, and this is good. You're able to see me building these little micro components. I don't even know what you call them. Subcomponents, little components, micro components, whatever. But these very lower level components that are used to construct everything else. And they go as low as as required. For me, my previous design systems that I've built, it goes even lower than text. There's one I think called Truncate, and you're able to tell how you want your text to be truncated, and you would put that inside your text. Very handy stuff. Equals use class names, and this use class names function, use class names hook is something I created to make using the class names function a little bit easier, a little bit more user-friendly. Class names equals this, and I want to do is muted. Class name. All right, so now this text literally does nothing. Does the exact same thing that it did before. Text. I just refactored it a bit. I set it up for success. That's what I did. So right now, hello should render pretty much the same. React's not defined. Well, that's a bummer. That makes sense. All right, there we go. Looks exactly the same. But my goal is, if I do is muted, it should change the contrast a little bit. So I'm just trying to think. So in the past, this text component, I built this several times before. It actually gets really complex, which is kind of funny just because all it does is that renders text. But the thing is, something to kind of recognize is the more frequent your component appears inside of your UI, the more complex it is in its very nature. Just because that's the thing that renders all over the place. That's the thing that most likely users see. That's the thing that they click, they interact with. So like buttons, inputs, drop downs, all of those guys, those most likely will be your most complex little base components just because they're used everywhere. All right, so I need some sizes. I'm just going to keep this very simple for now. Is muted. So what does muted mean? Muted means I'm just going to change the opacity. This is bad. You should actually be using hex codes, but this is fine. Great. So now if I'm rendering text and if it's muted, it'll be opacity 0.5. Otherwise, looks normal. Cool. So now I can. This is not correct. So now I can compose this UI here without doing a lot of like little CSS things. I'm using actual components to compose things, which is how you want to be building stuff. I'd much rather have lots and lots and lots of little components than have really complex larger components, because that defeats the whole idea of having components to begin with. So now I want to have various sizes. You would use like a type scale usually, you know, like what do you call it? Like small, extra small, medium, all that kind of stuff. Just to keep it simple for now, I'm just gonna go with numbers. So size. So if I have size, I'm gonna render a class name of is size hyphen size. All right. I will go into what this class name thing in a little bit. So I have my size is size, and if it's a size and it is, I want various sizes. So 13 would be font size 1.3 rem. This is very manual. Typically you would write like a, like a React kind of, not React, a JavaScript function to kind of iterate, loop through and render these things for you. But I'm doing this very manually for now. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so in theory, if I did size 12, it'll be smaller. Yay, it works. Cool. So jumping back to this, what on earth is this thing? Use class names, whatever. So use class names is a way for me, it's a custom little hook that I wrote that is able to allow me, creating these little components that lives inside of this website, to take in a default class name, text. So if I check out this UI here, hopefully you can see, all of my components that I've created have some sort of default class name to them. Flexi item, text, and so on. From the React standpoint, it doesn't actually need this. The reason why it's there is because it allows for regular CSS overrides to work. So a designer contributing CSS without touching React stuff, this is how they're able to do it. And the reason why I created this little function here is because I need to be able to extend the existing the existing class names that's coming into the component and passing it through. This is like a very kind of unavoidable manual thing you're gonna have to do with React. Just kind of babysitting and passing through class names to ensure that everything flows correctly. It's one of those things that you gotta do. And the other thing I really like about this is that this class names function, which comes from the Jed Watson class names module that you can npm install, I'm basically using that right here. And what's cool about this is that I can add on additional class names, modifiers, based on certain conditions. So if the text is muted, therefore I'll add the is muted class name, and so on, and size, and so on. So and in terms of size, this can be dynamic. So I can have is size 13, is size 12, or whatever. I don't need to add those manually, every single one. I can just do something like this. And there's two schools of thoughts in terms of styling styled components. One is you don't do any of this nonsense. I mean that with love. Like it's I think this is the correct way of doing it. Nonsense is just a little tedious. It's fine. So one way to do it is that you just write all of your complex JavaScript-based logic of rendering like muted styles, size styles, or whatever purely inside of here. The other way of doing it, which is what I prefer, is more traditional CSS in a way, where you tack on modifiers, which you would then write your classes like you would traditional CSS or Sass, the Sass looking thing here, to style it based on its modifier. And this kind of architecture stems from BEM, block element modifier way of thinking. And I prefer it this way just because I feel like it keeps the CSS and JS here way more readable. There's no like, I was a string but now I'm JavaScript and I'm back to string, and there's no jumping back and forth between that. It's just simple standard almost CSS. And the other benefit of that is when you're inspect elementing your UI, your HTML, you can see what the heck is even going on when you look at the class name. Hey, this text is muted. And now from a debugging standpoint, it's very helpful. And also because the class is available, I'm able to target it when I write custom CSS for reasons to do things. So, I haven't actually built the component yet just because I'm talking about the lower level things, but the lower level things are important because these are the foundational bits that you use to construct your bigger bits. And it's good to get these lower level bits correct. Right, so now I have text. All right, I'm just checking chat. All right, cool. So now I have text, I'm able to render text. It's funny, it's like I want to build this thing, but then you got, for me at least, I find that I need to go really low, really deep, build the little bits, and now I'm coming back out to build the text, which is fine. Happens all the time, but very effective, I think. Making sure you get all the little bits right. Cool, I can render text. I can render a contrast score with smaller text and slightly larger text right here. I have a component called box that just renders a box with things. Well, not things. It's basically like a little wrapper where you would typically put a div, but you're able to give it certain kind of properties that can change things like margins and paddings and stuff like that. It's really cool. It comes from this system called Styled Systems. Again, super low level stuff that allows you to compose UI very, very easily. Anyway, so I have a box, and now I'm rendering text inside. I have a box, and now, hopefully this worked. MB and margin bottom of 2. Yay, I'm able to separate it a little bit. All right, great. And for my text up here, I want the text to be muted. This one is muted, and it's smaller. Size is 12. I'm going to close this for now. Great. But this one is not muted and it's regular sized. This one is a size contrast score of, I don't know, 9.2. Cool. It's looking pretty good, I think. So another thing I want to do is I want to add some additional margin on the right-hand side of the swatch. MR for margin right. A little bit more maybe. 2, maybe I don't want a space after all. Cool. Cool. It's looking fine. All right. Yeah, so once you'll notice that once I start having all these little bits, I'm no longer needing to write UI code. I'm no longer needing to write CSS or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just using the little bits to build bigger bits, and that's how you should be constructing components. That's what component-driven design and all this stuff is. This is the end game goal. This is what you want. You compose everything using existing components. So now use dark text with this color. All right. So I have something down here that says text. Use strong, not string. I want strong, dark text with this color. Okay. Nope. This one needs to be muted. The size needs to be a little bit smaller, maybe a 13, something like that. It's muted. It's starting to look a little bit too muted, so I'm going to change that a bit. I am going to change that. Oops, I realized I needed a box here. So I needed a box to be here. All right. This one, muted text is muted. It's a little bit too muted. 7? Yeah, 7 is fine. Whatever. I need some additional spacing, some margin between this and this. So I'm going to add a box. Or wrap this in a box. MB2. Cool. Good enough. There's something on, something's not right here. The alignment of this is not correct. I feel like there's too much spacing between. There's something here that's not I'm not happy with. Line, I think it's the line height. Maybe it's the display. Oh, it's a display. All right, fine. Cool. So now I can enhance text with a little bit of another thing. Is block. Is block. Is block. This is where it's cool. Like as I'm needing to adjust text, the API of text for reasons, because I've already set up this kind of structure, it makes it easy for me to do it. Is block. Display. Block. Cool, so now I don't need a box at all, and I can just do you are a block, sir. Cool. Great. Looking fine. Fine. So inside my swatch, I need to render the score. I'm just gonna put the letter A inside, see what happens. That's not correct. Font, weight, bold, color, white for now. Right, so in order for you to render or make sure that thing snaps in the middle, there's various ways of doing something. There's various ways of vertical alignment. Vertical and horizontal, center alignment. There's various ways of doing that. For now, I am going to use the simplest method, that is display flex, align item center, justify content center. I'm going to alphabetize this again because I'm not an animal. Now we have that. Cool. So I'm starting to see parts of the UI come out. Great. At this point in time, I'm starting to see separate responsibilities for certain things. So like right now, the entire card is responsible for rendering the color of the swatch, rendering the contrast score, and providing the contrast score here, and also saying whether it's dark, light or dark or something like that, which isn't bad. It's manageable, I would say, but I'm gonna go with it for now, but my gut tells me that this swatch most likely needs to become its own little component, just because we'll start to get a little bit more complex as we go along. Cool. So now we have the basic component. We've developed it purely in isolation. Let's see what it looks like inside the actual application. Great. Yay, it works just like expected. That's one thing. This is why you need to do integration testing. The background is not there. Well, why? Because I never set a background. All right, I should set a background. Let's do that. Background is white. Yes, it is. Oh, alphabetize this because animal reasons. Cool. Now I can see it looking cool. Yeah, so the idea is as I click on one of these, this thing should change. But right now it doesn't do that. What do I need to do? Now I'm stepping into the data phase, somewhere here. I still need to construct more of this UI, but before I do that, I need to understand what data I have. What do I have to work with? So what do I need? I need the hex value or some sort of color value. I need the name of the color, and I need the contrast score. I believe I've written all that kind of stuff already inside the components, and I can tell by just console logging something. So if I go to color, and it is rendering a color set component with a set of blue. So let's check out color set. Color set. And the color set is rendering a color palette. The color palette, lots of little components, perfectly fine. That's fine with me. Console log colors. So I have two colors. One is WordPress blue, and one is the medium blue. So this is the information that I have to work with. Luminosity, model, I think that's how I can get that. Hex, and various other things. So I wrote something to get the contrast score before, and I'm going to cheat and see what I did before and steal it and write it here. It's fine. Contrast score. Okay. Get contrast score. Neat. Stealing code. Cool. Jumping back here. So I have some JavaScript utilities that that computes and calculates the various attributes and things that are passed into the object or the model that I have for the color. So I'm going to be adjusting that to be able to give it the contrast score. And this is important. So this is one of those things that I've seen creep up in various React component code bases where your component is trying to do too much. Ideally, all your component should be doing is consuming data and rendering it. If there are things related to data transforming, or like I'm going to calculate a contrast score based on the hex code, take that out. That should live inside of a utility. That should live inside of your store, your reducer, your something, not in the actual presentation UI component. That should be handled somewhere else. That data should be pre-computed, pre-calculated, and fed into your component. That's what you want. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. I'm going to be writing some of this stuff. Use text. All right, that seems fine. And then color util. That is not correct. Oh yeah, that's still correct. Get contrast. Get WAG score. Not WAG. WCAG score. Cool. So that is correct. And now I need to check out the thing that renders all my color data things. Here it is. Contrast score is get contrast score. And I just pass it the value. And in theory, that's all I need to do. And now, inside here, I should see a contrast score. Yay, 5.2. It feels a little low. Is that? That's a contrast score, and then I need the WCAG score. WCAG score value. Great. Cool. Now I see both things. AA right there. And all of them should have it. So if I were to arbitrarily pick, I don't know, accents red, and I jump to say shade 10%, I should see WCAG score AA and a contrast score of 5.51. Cool. My data is good, my data is set, it's being fed correctly through my React thingies, and now I can feed it into the UI. So here, the UI, what does it need? It needs a contrast score, 5.1. It needs a WCAG score. Maybe. Here's what I'm thinking. Maybe. So here's going back to what I said about your component shouldn't do anything, or your component should be purely presentational. There is a middle ground sometimes, okay, where things just kind of magically happen. A good example is text truncation. I keep going back to that one because that one's really magical. So you should, if you give some text and then you say max length is 51, your component should be able to chop up that text after 51 characters and take care of the rest. So there is some kind of computation going inside there. There is some JavaScript magic doing its thing. but it's very light. It's very focused. Whereas I've seen some React components where it like transforms the data in some weird ways and creates arrays and objects. It like does a lot with the data. You want to keep that very minimum. So what I'm thinking is if I give the swatch component a contrast score, it should know what the WCAG score is based on that contrast score. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. I am going to be, in my color info, I'm going to be creating a new component called swatch. Import React from React. I'm going to import styled from styled. I should really create some sort of snippet so I don't have to type this every single time, but it's fine. Export default function swatch is props and it does things. Yes, 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 I know. All right, I'm kind of tempted to create a snippet, but it's fine. It's fine. Here we go. Just because I need to do this like every single time. I need that. I need this. I need this. I need this. I need a color. I don't know. Color info swatch. Yeah, it's a good class name. So inside of my card, I will now take out the swatch UI. Put it here. Return the swatch UI. UI. And just write the word A for now. Props. Class name is class names. All right. So now my swatch looks identical to before. So instead of this card component taking care of some of the UI logic and UI presentation of the swatch, I'm just going to be using the swatch component that I created. Swatch, and it doesn't do anything. Okay. So now it's blank because, oh, you didn't give me a color. I don't know what to do anymore. It's crazy. Let's see. So I'm trying to think what it is I want to give to the swatch. So this is another bit of component design that's really handy. That is trying to figure out the best API for the thing. From a user perspective, like if I'm using the swatch, what do I want to give it? I just want to give you a color of like, I don't know, red, and you figure out the rest. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. The swatch should render red, and it should figure out whether the text color should be black or white for the A. It should figure out what the score is, you know, A or triple A or whatever it is, and it should render accordingly. So I need to plug, so if that is the desired API that I want, which it is. So now I'm going to do this. Rest props here, so now I'm going to pluck out color in order to do stuff with it. And I need to do something with the color. So in this example, I'm just going to give you a color of, I don't know, color is blue that I typically like to use. Okay, and I am going to need to do some things. I need the contrast score. I need this one. And I need the should use light text. All right. Const is light text is should use light text based on the color. That is the WCAG score. Is this from the color. So now I know if it's I'm just gonna call this score. So now I know if it's an A or double A or whatever it is just based on this. And I need to change some things. So const style is the color is, if it's light text, then the color needs to be white. Otherwise, the color needs to be black. That way you can see the label. And the actual background color is the color that you passed in. And now I'm going to style my swatch accordingly. And I'm going to extend the style just in case you passed in a style. Style prop. It's very important. whenever you're coding up React components and stuff, they should work just like default HTML components. You should pass through things as much as you can, because this is the expected behavior of these components. So styles, class names, that's a big one, aria props, rel, things like that should all be passed through. And that's why this kind of prop spreading kind of pattern is very important when you're building these lower level components. All right. Yay! So by passing in blue, I now know that that's what it looks like. It has a AA score, it has reasons, it has the things. So in theory, if I pass it a, let me just check out the storybook. So in theory, if I pass it a black, the score should be very high, like so. So here's a cool thing about storybook. Now I can test it in various scenarios. So if I pluck out the color, because that's the thing I'm getting it from props, and I'm passing it into here. And one thing I really like doing is I like giving things default properties. That's just because I feel like out of the box, the component should be able to render itself without complaining. You'll see oftentimes there are components that have like deeply nested dependencies on other things, whether it's coming from context or some other thing, and if you didn't give it that property, it'll complain. I don't know. I personally like having a set of default props just so your app doesn't explode when you're trying to render a title, something like that. Hey Diego, Diego's here. Cool. Hey man. The color, I don't know. What's a good color? I like the color I used before, so I'm gonna use that. Card default props and default props. All right. Cool. So here's a cool thing about Storybook. Finally, I can render multiple cards. Now I can give you random colors just to be able to test to see if this whole thing is working. Color is black. Color is white. White. Shoot, does color strings work? Red. Oh man, that works. That's cool. Color is, man, color utilities nuts. What's a good one? What's an actual WordPress color? Foundations, cool. Color, cool. Blah, blah, blah. This one. Copy to clipboard works, so I can do this very easily. Orange. Color, orange. Green, sure. Color, green. Instead of red, I'll just use this red. So now, in my UI, I'm able to see what it looks like, except I can't scroll for some reason. Why is that? Why is that happening? There's something in my CSS that's making me not allowed to scroll. I don't know why. What is it? What is it? Is there some sort of locking something? I don't know. Come on, man. Oh, right, because it's position fixed. So I'm just gonna get rid of that. Cool. Card UI, the width is very big. Why is it so big? Oh, that's why. Base card. Because I am making the max width inside of here, not the actual card. How embarrassing. Let me just get rid of that. Cool. Alrighty, so these are my UIs. And I'm able to see what they look like. Why is that such a fail? Is this contrast that bad? What? So there's something happening with my contrast math that it's not liking. Why? Why is it an F? Oh boy. Well, let's check it out. All right, let's check out actual contrast score testers and see what happens. So in the WordPress blah blah, there is a contrast score linky somewhere here. Contrast score ratio checker. Contrast score. The foreground, background, foreground, background. Really? Huh. It's a fail. So it's not my math. It's just the color is a fail. Wow. That's good to know. And by the way, again, these were the colors that I just got from this website, the CodePen. I didn't like manipulate anything. It's just, sorry folks, that's the score. That's the current score, unfortunately. What a bummer. So yeah, that's kind of sucks, but that's all right. I mean, this is a good way to be able to see it, and then to be able to do something about it. So that's two. There's a light here. I'm gonna test out the blue, and now I'm curious. So I'm gonna test out the blue. I'm gonna test out the purple, and this is why Storybook is so cool, because I'm able to do this really, really fast. This is gonna change something here. I'm gonna do display flex, and it should do something. Flex wrap. Wrap? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Yeah, cool. So now you get this layout. I can see a bunch of colors at the same time. Neat. Neat. All right. Copy the medium blue. Paste in here. Purple. Cool. Neat. And yeah, so what's missing? Well, the contrast score number is missing, and the dark or light text thing is missing, and the title is missing. So a couple of things missing, but that's okay. That is okay. So inside of my UI, I need. So what are some props that I need for this? So a name would be WordPress Blue. That's my default name. The contrast score is, I don't know, 9.2. And what is the color data? The thing, like, is light text or something like that? Huh, I don't know. So I guess I will pluck out this util from here. Should use light text. Use light text. That's fine. Oh no, wrong place. Into here. Should use light text. All right. Const is light text is should use light text from the color. Const light text label is light text. So if it's light text, then it would be light. Otherwise, it would be dark. And now I'm just rendering the text label inside of here, so it's computed. I need the name. Name is WordPress Blue. It's no longer WordPress Blue. Contrast score. Contrast score is here. So now I think it should look exactly the same. However, in my stories, I can change it now. So if I had, I'm just going to change this a little bit. Return. Sure, my grid of data, whatever, it's fine, it's fine. Const color props. So if I had some props that was like name. Actually, should a color. I'm gonna make it calculate the contrast score all by itself, based on the color that you pass it. Makes it a little bit easier, I think. Yeah, so backtracking all the way where I was like, hey, your component, again, hey, your component should take care of presentational things. I think this falls into the realm of it's a little bit of magic just so your component is nicer to use. Because I've also seen code bases where your component literally doesn't do anything other than just like render markup and CSS together. It's up to you to give it like 15 props of data just to render things, which is fine. It works. It makes it very easy to unit test, but it's very laborious. There is this middle ground. There is this gray area. I don't want to use the word gray. There is a magical color area where things just feel nice. It's opinionated a little bit, but it's not too opinionated where you're fighting against it. It just works. The it just works realm. That's kind of where I like to design things. Contrast score. So I'm going to be generating my own contrast score based on the color you give me. And I'm going to be passing it there, so no longer do you need to give me a contrast score. Why are you complaining? Oh, right. Color props is, the name of it is, I don't know, WordPress black. That's the name of the color. And the color is that. So now in theory, if I spread these particular props onto the very first color card, get contrast scores, that's fine. Okay. Right, just because I need to get from there. All right, cool. WordPress black, contrast score, perfect, because it's literally the most contrast that you can get. So now I am able to render these things. Great. What other bits of data do I want to show? I want to show the hex value and the RGB. Oh man. So this is actually not hard. The reason why I'm manning is because, well, these are inputs. I don't have input components yet, so therefore I need to make input components. Inputs are, again, one of those things that at the surface seem like kind of tiny things, but in reality they get stupidly complex. But it's fine. I've coded this somewhere vaguely before, and I'm just going to copy and paste it inside because that's how I'm rolling for now. Cool, yay, input component. Label, oh cool, I render a little label. I want this to be bar color WordPress blue. Cool. No, I don't need it to be WordPress blue. What am I doing? Bar WordPress blue, and the border color. I need the border color to be a certain color. What's the color? Stop crashing. I need it to be dark gray 700. Dark gray 700. Maybe 600. What's a good border color? I'll do 600. And then when you hover over it, or when you do something with it, it gets... No, it's fine. It's fine. What is this? When you focus on... So these styles that I'm looking at, they were copied over from like WordPress. So I don't know what color that is. Ah, dark gray something. Cool. It's an actual color there. Oh wait, that means that 8, 6, 8. No, that's just a random color they had. Oh no. Okay, the color becomes some dark gray 900 business. All right. So now I have my input, but my input is missing a label, because I created a label component as well in my other code base, and I'm going to copy that. Label. Get color. Oh man. So I created a function previously, get color, that would, from a JavaScript standpoint, render the appropriate color, like a CSS variable or something. There's something fancy I did. Probably don't need to do it here. It's fine. Var color light gray 600. Sure. Okay, so I have that. I have this, and now I'm going to export both of them. Label, export default as label from. Why didn't I just copy and paste the line above? I don't know. I should have. Input. Okay. Right. Input label pluck from index, and it's fine. It's working. It's fine. Okay. So inside of my card UI, I need to now render little hex code things. Hex and the RGB. Cool. Where is it? Input, 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 input from there. I'm just going to render an input just to see what it even looks like, because I have absolutely no idea. There's no border to it. All right, this is a bad start. All right, well, step 1, render your inputs with borders. That's why I need the word color in front of it. Same with this. Okay, that is way too dark. It's still pretty dark. I'm just guessing. I'm just shot at the dark right here. Shot in the dark right here. Light gray 9. What's a good border color? Light gray. Light gray. It's very ironic that I'm working on a color guide and I don't know what the appropriate color is to use for borders. So when you're creating a design system or some sort of color system or something like that, in addition to having your color palettes, which is wonderful, your rainbow array of blues and reds and all that kind of stuff, it's very handy to have labeled colors for practical things like border, heading text, body text, label text, disabled text, things that you would actually, like nicknames or aliases for those colors that you would actually use in your UI. And those things are the ones that reference your blue 500s or your blue 700s and so on. It just makes it a little bit easier to kind of figure out what the heck it is even going on. Anyway, I have my input. It's fine. Text is too small. We need to fix it. The default text is, why is it so tiny? I don't like that. So tiny. Font size 16.6. Alrighty. That's a little bit too big, I think. 1.6, 1.4. There we go. And now it looks like that. Great. Yay. Inputs. How did I render this? I had some custom label things. It's fine. It's fine. Alrighty, this is a good opportunity to build another little component. Let's see. What do I call it? Value input. So what I'm thinking is there should be a component for this with a value and the label underneath it, the input and the word hex, input and the word R and G and B. That way I can use that same component 4 times to render this particular layout. Is it overkill? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. But like with anything else, anytime this comes up, it's always like, it depends. In this case, I think it's fine. Just because it does so little, and it saves me from having to write, I don't know how many levels of markup in order to render each one. I can just render 4 components. value input 4 times versus like structure to kind of have the input, have the label, and so on. Export default function value input. And what do I need? I need the value, and I need the label. Those are the 2 things I need. And I'm gonna rest props the rest. Oh, really wish I had my snippet. It's fine. I'll still just copy and paste it from here. It's fine. Okay. It's fine. Return. For now, it's just gonna be a. I'm gonna make it a box. Yeah, bring in a box from index. Yeah. So everything renders inside of a box. Cool. And it will not have anything yet. It needs an input and maybe a text. Input. Rest props. Value is the value. And down here in my text is muted, is the label. Not only do I do that, I'm going to change the size a little bit. Size, oh, this is interesting. This is a different form of text. So in addition to changing the size, it's like all caps. I don't know, what is this? Title case? What's title case? Uppercase is uppercase. What do I even want to call this? I'm time boxing myself. 10 seconds. If I can't figure it out in 10 seconds, I'm just going to make it simple. Otherwise, I might go with a more complex solution. All right. Do I want to create a separate component just to render all caps text with a specific size? I'm going to go with no for now. Instead, I'm going to change this a bit so that I'm able to render that UI if I want to in a programmatic sense. So I can make it that, and then I can do is uppercase. It is uppercase, and if it is uppercase, then text transform uppercase. Sure. Cool. Done. So now in my label, I can do size is, I don't know, 11 is uppercase. So in these particular UIs, whenever you want to do uppercase text of things, in addition to doing that and shrinking the text size a little bit, what you would usually do is add additional letter spacing. It just makes it easier to read. So inside here, I'm going to do letter spacing 0.5. Sure. Oh, I'm not rendering anything yet. Okay, cool. Well, inside of my stories, inside my little guy, I have a new component coming from value input from value input. And it is rendering right here, right under this random HR. I'm just sticking in. Value input is a label of hex, and the what is a value? Oh yeah, the value is a color. For now, cannot resolve something. Okay, well then, calm down a second. Let me figure this out. Dot slash. Something is not happy I'm going to open up the chat just in case someone might have some ideas. Something is not happy. No one in chat is helping me. That's funny. I got it. I got it. There's a padding issue. // Maybe it's just, I think it's just this. I may be wrong. Oh yeah, it's just that. Great, cool. The input looks a little big. This one is using like smaller inputs, so it's probably a smaller size, I think. So in my input, I'm gonna do this thing again where this class name thing, so I can add a little modifier. Class name is class name, and the class name is class names input and size and is size hyphen size. Okay, so I can change certain things about the input based on the size. So if I did is size SM being small, I can now change the padding. Sure. Use class names. Of course it doesn't exist because it didn't import it. Import use class names from utils. Okay, now that's happy. That's fine. Where is my value input? Value input is here. That's not being used right now. That's fine. Color info value input. Class name is class names. And this one, the size is small. Did that work? I don't know. I think it did. It's just the text needs to change. Input index. That feels a little tighter. Yeah, cool. So that is fine. This should now be value input is now, I'll make it 10. Is that too small? That looks fine. Looks kind of, it might be too small, but it's okay. If it needs to be adjusted, it should be fine. Now I need my thing. Import, oh, hang on. Styled system. So I need the word text to align to the middle. Fine. I will do this. Import styled from styled components, and then I will do a const wrapper UI is a div, and this div does a thing. Nope, too complicated, I don't like this. All I really need, man, is I just need, okay, you know what? Again, we can enhance our text component with align. Align is align. What does that mean? That means that if you tell me to is align, I'm gonna put it down here, and you're making me left, then that means text align left. Think you know where I'm going with this. Center right. So in my label, I can, not only do I make it uppercase, I'll make it a block, and I'll do align center. Yay! It works. And I just need a little bit of extra margin between the that and that. I might need a styled component. Styled from style components. Okay. Const input wrapper UI is styled div. So why am I using this and not a box? Because I think the box, they have predetermined margins with predetermined numbers. Like 1 is equivalent of like 4 and so on, as scales that way. But if I need a number that is outside of that, it's not as easy to do. So I'd much rather just do something like this. Makes it a little bit easier. Cool. So I now have this, which is fine. And in theory, I can now render something that looks like something. I need to pluck something out here. Style. Style is style. You know what? I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I'll come back to it. So the difference between something like these and this is that these are predetermined widths. So I don't know what the width is here. 40, sure. 40, 40, 40, and then remainder for the other one. So I need to be able to define widths for the R, the G, and the B. And then the hex will take up whatever it is. So I want to make it easy to be able to define a width for this guy. So I will do const style is style prop and the width. And by default, you don't have a width because you didn't come with one. All right. Card. So now I have, where is the value? Right. So I can do flexi. My boy flexi. Flexi block. Arbitrary width. Flexi item. Value is, I'm just random now, 255. R. And the width, whoops, is 40. R, G, B. I'll keep this for now. And now I should see something that looks like this. Yay! 40 looks a little bit too short. So let's do 50. 50 too much. 44. 44 looks just about right. I want to reduce the amount of, again, the flexi is really cool because it knows how to just snap things next to each other. I want to reduce the spacing between here. So I want to change that to something else. So by default, it has a margin right of something. So I want to change that to const spacing, rest props, is props, flexi, and then const class name. You're going to see me do this a lot. Just as I work through these components, you'll notice that I'm not really writing a lot of CSS. It's more like component API kind of stuff, and that's important. This is how you work with lower level components. You do it purely through component API via React and so on, rather than tweaking CSS stuff. That's because as you build these functions into these lower level subcomponents, the API is how other people consume it. It's how other people understand it, is how they use it. So that has to be really intuitive and clear. And that's how you basically expose the functionality of your components, whether that's purely presentational or otherwise. That's how you do it. So spacing and spacing is spacing. So the default spacing is medium. Let's say flexi default props, spacing is MD. Sure. Class name here. Sure. All right. So how do I want to do this? It's with this thing. Great. So, this is where JavaScript generators really help. Or if you're used to Sass, you would write mixins to like generate your classes based on reasons using loops. So a really good example is inside of Bootstrap. I think they still do this, but definitely in version 3. They had a for loop that would generate 0 to 12 all of their grid system. All the various breakpoints from 0 to 12, column 0 to 12, all the offsets. They would write a Sass mixin to generate all that stuff. I wish I can do this here. I mean, eventually, maybe. But for now, I'll just manually write it. It's fine. Is spacing MD. So spacing MD by default is that. And by doing SM, I'm going to reduce it to 4. And by doing extra small, I'll reduce it to that. And if I had none, is 0. Alrighty, so those are my spacing guys. Spacing, great. So my flexi, I want to reduce the spacing of those to SM, smaller. Yeah, great. Now that works. This UI looks like it's working fine. What I want to do now is, you notice that this is relatively, from a markup perspective, a little verbose just to have into my card. So I will create a brand new component just to encapsulate this. We call it hex RGB. I'm really good at naming things. Oh, I wish I had a snippet. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Hex RGB. It's fine. Copying and pasting is fine. Alrighty. So now I'm gonna copy all this. I'm gonna paste it all in here. That did not work. I pasted the entire file. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to copy and paste this code, yes, into here. Come on. All right. Things. What do I need? I need box. I need value input. I need flexi. So flexi comes from there. Value input comes from local scope. Comes from there. And I need the color. That's all I need. Great. 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 Rest props. Oh yeah. So rest props goes inside of here, and class name goes into class names. Bang. Box, I'm not using that, so get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay, so now I have my encapsulated hex RGB component, which I can now render into here. Hex RGB from local hex RGB. Typo there. Hex RGB. Yay! It's missing a song. I need a default color. What is a default color? What is a good default color? Black. Sure. Hex RGB. Default props is color is black. Cool. This offers us an opportunity to use Storybook again, which is kind of fun. I really like using Storybook. So I'm going to create a dedicated story just for hex RGB. Doesn't this feel a little bit, you know, fine grained? Yes, it does. But that's the point. Go as tiny as you need to flesh out all this kind of stuff. I need now that component. So I need to export a bunch of things here. So I need hex RGB. hex RGB. I need value input from here. Value input. What else did I make? Swatch, yeah. From swatch. Okay, so for this one, I can just pluck value input locally. From a card, I can pluck value input and swatch locally. And hex RGB. Oh, handy. Get rid of this, get rid of this. Cool. I'm not using that anymore. Great. Okay. We're almost there. Hex RGB. Hex RGB. I am rendering a hex RGB. I will figure out the color props later. And now in my story, I'm gonna jump back to Storybook. All I should be seeing is this. And it's giant because it's, you know, it's not up to, the component doesn't render the width. The encapsulating parent takes care of the width. All right. So now what can I test? I would like to be able to test that if I give it any kind of color, red, blue, whatever it is, it will then figure out what to render for the hex, the R, the G, and the B. Okay, so by default, the color is black. Color is, where is it? Ah! I need word accent red. This color is accent fire, sure. This color is WordPress blue. This color is shade 20 purple. Great. So right now, the hex RGB, the hex is kinda doing something. It's not giving me the hex, it's just giving me the color black. So it needs to do a transform there, and also need to get the RGB as well, because right now it's just rendering white RGB. So a little bit of color magic needs to happen here. What can I do? I can, it's very simple. I can get the color util actually. Color, I mean, it's already a dependency, so grab it, put it here. All right. I'm gonna do the color model is the color, and this one comes from npm. I need to check the docs. No shame in googling to check the docs. I do this all the time just because I can't remember it all. Hex. That doesn't look right. How do I get the hex from this thing? Come on, man. Hex? Hex value. I need the hex. There has to be a way to get the hex. Maybe, it's fine. I'll just play with it. Console log color model hex console. Yeah. All right. So that's the hex. All right. Cool. Hex is this. So Storybook is complaining because I just saw this. Storybook is complaining because the box component requires a theme provider in order for it to do its thing. Slightly annoying, and this is one of those things where it's like I wish it didn't have to have that dependency, but it does. So what I can do is I can do this. Theme provider from styled components, and inside my theme provider is my theme that renders a blank object because I don't have a theme going on, and it's fine. So what you're seeing is a decorator that I've added to Storybook that wraps all the stories. It injects the global styles, which is what I need, but now I'm injecting without an on-change handler. That's fine. On-change, on-change, on-change. Right, you need an on-change handler. Give me 1 second. Stop yelling at me. Okay. Input default props on change is I need a noop. Noop. Do I have noop? Probably not. So in my utils, I need one called other. This one export function noop, and all of that does is that it returns undefined. It doesn't do anything. Literally does not do anything. No op. Nope. So other. Now I can import noop from here, and it's working fine, and it should not complain anymore. Great. Hex. So I now have the hex, and I can render the hex inside of here. Great. And the R, the G, and the B. I can get that from object. Ah, cool. Color model. Const RGB is color model RGB array. Man, this utility is phenomenal. I really love the color one, the utility. It's so good. Oh my, typos. Boom. We have R, we have G, we have B, and we have color hex just by giving it an initial color. No more complainings inside a terminal. And now if we check out the larger component that renders it, that consumes it, right now it's not set up to do that. But as soon as I pass in color into hex RGB, bam, that works now. That's hooked up. And in theory, I mean, the colors are all wrong here, but in theory, if I take a look at my actual site now, which you'll see that this, and this are reflecting the colors from here, and WordPress blue, that's not correct. Also, I'm rendering a random input there. I need to get rid of that. Get rid of that. There we go. Cool. I need a horizontal rule component. Ugh. And I'm ugging just because it's one of those, I wish I had this lower level component that I didn't have to like code all over again. It's fine. I'll take care of it. Very simple. And here's how you code an HR component. You look at Bootstrap and you see how they do it. Because I don't remember how they did it off the top of my head. Oh, come on. They had one. Where is it? Horizontal HR. Unless they got rid of it. They had one a long time ago. I'm going to time box this to 10 seconds. That's what I'll do. I just time box things really quickly. And if I can't do it, I can't give up. I mean, I can't even, I just give up and then, all right, fine, I'll just make my own. Okay, that's where I'm at now. I'll make my own. Okay. HR. So HR, and this is, let's see if I remember. Height is 0. Margin is like, by default it's like 20 or something like that. And then you have the border top, 1 pixel, and then you color it something. Color light gray 600. Alphabetize, because animal. By animal I mean like because I'm not an animal. Horizontal rule UI. That's it. Okay, so now I have my HR. I am going to export it, HR from HR, and now instead of rendering some random HR, I can actually render a component. HR. It's just weird seeing HR like that in all caps. I might have to rename it. It's fine. All right, so let's see the iframe version. And this is a cool thing about Storybook. So in Storybook, you can navigate all your stories like so, right? But by clicking on this guy, it opens up this dedicated story inside of an iframe that allows you to work on this purely in isolation. And the other really cool thing about Storybook, and keep going on about Storybook now, is if you have something like this, if you have your UIs set up in various stages, like your error states and all that kind of stuff, or if you have complete flows, either prototyped or built out in Storybook. If it's prototyped, this is where it's really cool for prototyping. If you build this out, if you build out Storybook and you have that URL available in a Netlify or a now.sh or some sort of like deploy environment, you can just send this prototype link to anybody and they'll be able to see the UI, they'll be able to click on things, which is really, really cool. You don't need to worry about the server hassle and all that kind of stuff. Serverless development's really cool in 2019. It's a really cool thing you can do nowadays. What's the other thing? Oh yeah. And with Storybook, if you have a more not prototype, but your actual build, and it's running, it's available, it's your application running, or parts of it running, you can actually write end-to-end tests hitting your Storybook UI. So hitting a specific iframe of your Storybook, you can use something like Cypress or Puppeteer or whatever it is you want to click through your UI and do assertions. So you can do actual testing throughout Storybook in isolation. Very cool stuff. Done it before, works great. Okay, back to the HR. Need to render this HR so it doesn't look fugs. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing things? I need... Oh, that's why. That's why it's fugs, because I made it fugs. Okay, border, I need the border to be done. Border, none. There we go. But the spacing is too much. Fine. Gonna add spacing. Rest props is props. So I could have just as easily just write some CSS just to always make it kind of like, what do I really need? I need it to be like 8 pixels or something like that. 12 pixels, something like that. Yeah, like that's kind of what I need. But by doing this modifier pattern that I've been doing throughout this live stream, it allows me to reuse this in other places with those modifiers already baked in. So I don't need to rewrite CSS or whatever. I can just use the component as is, out of the box-ish, because it's all within my project. Not really creating a component library here, although I wish I was. Anyway, class name. Const class name is class names is spacing and is spacing. All right. You class name, go here, cool. And the default spacing is medium? I don't know. Spacing. So once you start doing lots of things like this, default props, spacing, you have like essentially what are enums, where you have multiple choices like small, medium, large, and so on. If you had something like TypeScript, or Flow, you'll be able to type those in so that the options that you're able to put into the props becomes a lot more clearer inside of your VS Code or whatever editor you might have. If you have documentation, it's a very, very good place to put it in a README file or whatever it is. Highly recommended. But since I'm not developing a component library, and I'm just doing this for the website, I'm just going to skip that for now. But it's something I recommend you do if you do work on, say, a design system, component library, or whatever. Always have those things well documented. Prop types, enums, types, flow types, whatever it is you use. Okay, is spacing, SM is margin 12.0, medium is 16? No, 20. Let's make a big jump. Extra small is 4? I don't know. It's fine. The arbitrary numbers, we can always fix them later. And this one, spacing, is SM. Great. And I think that's it for now, because I don't think these components actually have like class names or anything like that. It's just let's see, what else? It's just these, because there's no Sass class name. I looked into it. There's no Sass class names. There's no CSS variables or anything like that. This is all we have. So with that, the UI looks like it's completed. We can see it rendering an array of various colors. The contrast score is automatically generated. The accessibility contrast score, the A, AAA, or in this case F for green, is automatically generated. Hex codes automatically generated. RGB automatically there. All you got to do is use the color info component, pass in your color and also your name, and it'll figure out the rest. That is the point. And we're finally here. We started from here, this drawing, and we're now here, where we have a fully fleshed out component. We've tested out, it in various ways like this, and it's rendering fine. Now we got to hook up the data so that it actually knows how to do things. Oh boy. So if I jump into the website here, yeah. So I'm just looking at where it's showing up. I think it's showing up fine. I mean, in certain views, it's going to cover stuff, and that might be fine. Need to figure out how to take care of this for mobile, which might be okay. We'll see. Yeah. So the next thing I got to do is I need something higher level up here, this app provider or something it is, so that when I click on one of these guys, it'll send the data upwards, and then that data will know how to feed into this. Cool. I need, so that data needs to come from somewhere. I've created, I believe, an app provider, and I am going to add use state here, and I will set const, this one is current color, set current color, okay, from use state, and then I will pass this through here. Cool. So now any components that render within my my website will have access to current color data and also the ability to set it. So now I need to drill down into the color palette item here, which is a button, I believe. Right. So when you click on a thing, it knows how to handle on click. What do you do on click? You set copied and you do other things. So here's a tricky bit. This is where I need to connect it to the application. What I can do is import, let's see, I need to import use app context. Is that what I called it? Where is it? Provider context, use app context. Yeah, use app context from // providers app provider. I kind of don't like that the app provider is all the way out here. Just because, okay, in the past, how you'd structure your React application is, this is around the era of Redux, when Redux became really big. You would do something like this: containers, components. And this is really important because, like, application folder structure and all this kind of stuff, these are the things that when you nail, it'll scale beautifully over time. Anyone joining your project for the first time, anything like that, they can immediately jump in and they'll know what the heck is going on. So this containers components pattern that they had before, container, I don't know what to go, sign up button, sure. Sign up button, which is a thing, and then you'd have sign up button down here. You'd base, in the previous kind of Reduxy setup, which Dan Abramov now said, don't do this because this scales really badly over time, is you basically have a one-to-one between the thing that connects your presentation component to Redux in a dedicated container folder. And you just do this infinitely. So now you'd have, say, 100 containers for 100 components, and then it's just like, it feels very verbose and manual and difficult to work with. So the reason why I'm going into this is because initially I separated the providers, which is kind of like the Reduxy kind of thing, out in its own little area. But I'm now thinking, man, I'll just put it inside of components. It's fine. It doesn't really need to be outside. If it does, then I'll change it. But for now, it's fine. It is perfectly fine here. App provider in the component layer, it's fine. App provider, app. I'm pretty sure I broke things, so I need to fix some things now. Site layout. Something is rendering app provider, and I don't know what it is. App provider. Oh man, I messed up my VS Code. It's now doing things. Search. Okay. Here we go. App provider is coming from, I don't want it to come from there. I want it to come from here. Thank you. And for this one, I want it to come from components. Thank you. And inside of my story decorator, I need it to also come from components. Thank you. App provider from components / app provider. All right. App provider is all the way up here. Now we have theme provider and blah, blah. It's inside of your React application, you'll typically have a lot of providers. Style providers, theme providers, prop providers, whatever the app provider, whatever the heck you need. Your providers all over the place. You use React Router? Well, React Router is just like a provider kind of thing. You have your router and you have your routes. Internally, they're hooked up using context and various fancy magical things to do whatever it is they need to do. Okay, so now I have my app provider hooked up. I need to use export everything from /context. Great. This is complaining. All right, use app context from /app provider. So I'm gonna see if this even works. Const, I need, I'm just gonna console log it. Console log, use app provider. And this is a hook, a custom hook that is set up with context. If I console log it, I should, because I have tons and tons of colors. What is this? It's complaining about something. Right. I have tons and tons of colors. I need, right, so the app provider is working. Current color is there, set color, current color is there. I need to be able to set the current color when I click it. And I need to feed it certain color data in order to render into this thing. So I need the name of the color, which I guess is the label? No, man, I need like a full name, just because shade 10, right? Shade 10% works fine in the context when you're seeing accent red and it's kind of UI. But I need accent red shade 10 inside the title here. just a little bit of data transformation when I send it through to the context. I can handle that. That is fine. Right now, what do I need? I need the handle on click. I need to send to you const set current color equals use app context. What am I sending? I need the name, which happens to be the name, and I need the color, which happens to be the... No, I'm going to send the value up. Okay, so now I'm going to test to see if this is working. Inside of my color info, I'm going to now connect it to, what does this mean? I don't know what this means. I'm going to connect it, the color info thing, to my app provider, which now in theory has the color information, the current color. Okay, which is right here. Color info is right here. So now I'm going to connect it. I'm going to import use app context from index slash app provider. All right. So I can now check for the current color. Current color is this console log current color. So if I'm here, and if I click on one of these things, I will now see the current color data. By default, it is undefined because there is no color to begin with. Once I click it, you'll see it. Yeah? Cool. So the thing that I can do is, in the beginning, if there is no current color, which is what happens when you first load the screen, if there is no current color, then return null, meaning don't render anything. Otherwise, I have my current color. And I can now pluck the name and the value from my current color and provide it into the card as name. I believe I called it name. And the color is value. So there's some little remapping there. It's fine. Great. So now when I click on these, it's magical. These are now changing, which is great. Yay, it works. Now I have additional context for the colors that I'm clicking through. How sweet is that? And again, we started from this chicken scratch drawing I had earlier. A couple of things I need to do before I wrap up. That is, there is a stray console log somewhere that's rendering this color set. I gotta get rid of that. Color set. Color set. All right. All right. The other thing I need to do by default, no color renders until I click one. Whee! Okay, now that renders. Okay. I would like to add some sort of animation inside of here, like fading in or something, that tiny detail. The other thing I need to fix is the name. Here, shade 10, yeah, I need to fix that. So if it's an accent, oh man, these names are really long. It's fine, we'll work with it, it's fine. So the thing that triggers the clicking is the color info. Nope, it is the color palette, the item. And it is passing through the name of the color I want saved into memory. So I need to manipulate the name in some way. I already have some functions down here. So yeah, I need to get the color name. Function get color, current color name. That's a little bit better. So what's happening is I'm creating a selector that basically remaps the props that, or all the props that this component is getting, and just getting a specific bit of data from it to be able to pass through. And I mean, you could write all the logic in here, which some people do, and your components or your functional components just become really giant. But for me, I like to keep it outside. That keeps this a lot cleaner. I can read it a lot better. And if you name things a certain way, like get is shade tint by doing things, and now it's like is shade tint, I understand what that means. These are booleans based on whatever calculations I've passed in through external functions. It also makes it easier to test, because if I export these little guys, then you can do you can write unit tests for them. And I don't have any tests for this website, and I think that's fine given what this website is, but I'm developing it in a way kinda that still enables some of those things that you could get from an application. I'm developing with those principles in mind, of like keeping things small, composable, unit testing, and all that, or the ability to unit test, and so on and so on. Anyway, get current color name. What do I need? I need the name of the color, which is here, and there's also metadata attached to the color itself. Okay, so I need to type, right, const get is color accent. This makes it a little bit easier, because that way I don't have to write this kind of twice. And it's just returning if type is accent. Okay, const is color accent. Props, and here I just do is accent and blah blah. I don't need types anymore. All right, so for this one I also need to make sure it's an accent. And then I need to, if it's an accent, then I need to tack on the accent color with the name. So I'm trying to think what the shape of the data is right now. I don't know what it is. So what's a way to find out? I'll just console log it. Console log props. I'm just seeing an explosion of things. It's fine. I need the name is accent purple. No, that's not the one I need. Tint. Tint is 20%. The base name, that's it. So I need the base name. I need the base name combined with the name. Then I'll get accent purple, tint 20%. Okay, fair enough. If is not color accent, then just return the name prop, because we don't touch it. Otherwise, return the base name with the name prop. Okay. Name is get current color name from props. Current color name is get current color name from props. And here, what happened? I have no idea. So light gray, 600 should be the same. Now if I click on fire shade 10%, I'm expecting accent orange, fire shade 10%. There we go. Now it's very long. Man. Oh, this is a long one. Accent. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a new property to this card info. I am going to give it in addition to the name, I'm going to give it a subtitle. I don't know what other thing to call it. Subtitle. So in the top, it renders a title. There's also a subtitle. Alrighty. So if sub, oh man, I keep pressing my touch bar. Freaking I hate the touch bar. So much courage. Let's see. Subtitle. I will render text. Text is there. Text is muted, size 13. Subtitle. 12? 13. 13 is fine. Okay. Okay. So here's what I'm gonna do. I don't no longer need this get current color name. It actually needs to be get accent name. Probably get accent name. Okay, so undefined, and return is color accent. If you're an accent, then I will give you the name. Well, no. Okay, get current color. That's still relevant. So return if you're an accent. If color accent, then your name will be the base name. Otherwise, you'll be the name prop. Okay, so I need another one here. Function get accent name props. It's very similar here. And I just need the name prop. So if you're an accent, then you get the name prop. Otherwise, you get nothing. Okay. Current color, const accent, current accent name. Get accent name. I'm gonna change this a bit. Get current accent color name. Little verbose, but it's fine. Current accent color name. And I'm gonna send it through as a subtitle. No. Name, accent, name. All right. Props. Groups, props. Why are you complaining? Oh, that's why. Okay. So now I have 2 bits of data feeding through. I have the name of it, which is transformed based on whether it's an accent color or not. And then I have an accent name, which is available if it's an accent, otherwise it's not. Logic, fine, crazy, a little bit, but it's abstracted away from the component into these little isolated things. By the time it hits this, it should be sane, it should be calm. So now that I know I have those 2 bits of data, I can now pluck it and feed it into the card accordingly through the thing that connects the card to the UI. Here, current accent color. I think that's what's called, current accent color. Oh, no. Current color, and then we have accent color. Accent color or accent name? I think I called it accent name. So many files. Color palette item. Accent name. Yeah, accent name. Okay, accent name, and the subtitle, because I don't know what else to call it, is the accent name. So, what have we done? So when I click on a non-accent color, I should see this, WordPress blue. I should see light gray 700. As soon as I click on an auxiliary color, I will see accent orange or accent red, regardless of whichever one I click, at the very top. And then right underneath it, I will see shade 30%. Great. The UI doesn't look great, but this is working fine. So I need to account for certain things. I need to account for when the card has a accent name and when it doesn't. Let's jump into Storybook. This is where Storybook gets really handy because I can fake it and then Storybook is no longer working for me. Cannot find app module something something. All right, calm down. All right, it's back in business. All right, so here, this particular red one, I'm going to change this story so I can see it. Color is, the name of it is accent red, and the accent name is, it's wrong, but it's fine, tint 20%. I just need to see, it's the subtitle. I just need to see the UI. That's all I care about. Cool. So I need to adjust the UI a little bit to be able to handle this. I kind of don't like that the card is bigger when the title is there, but it's not much I can do about it, I guess. Like I don't really like it when UI like cards and stuff like that shrink and grow arbitrarily for reasons, because as I click through these things, this is gonna shrink and grow. Which it does already. It's not that bad. I wish it could be better. Hopefully a designer can come in and help me out with this. We'll see. But for now, I'll just accommodate this use case via React and things. So, title UI, subtitle UI. Const subtitle UI is the div, and by default, it has a margin bottom just the same, except margin top, it has an offset so that it looks like this. It's tight with the top as if it belongs together, and it provides the same amount of margin from the bottom as if it didn't exist at all. So now I can accommodate both use cases fine, I think, as I'm clicking through the colors like so. Like gray, accent orange, and here's my first little, oh man, my first little boo-boo. It fits. The tricky thing is, these are accent colors, but if it's the main accent color, the name of it is accent red. So if it's an accent red main, it's an accent red. But if it's a shade, it would be accent red, shade 20%. So what I need to do is, for the accent name inside of the item here, where is it? Where is it? Accent name, right. Type accent type is main accent. All right, so I have to check if it's a main accent as well, because if it's a main accent, then I don't give it a accent color. Const is main accent. And this is why these little selectors are very handy, because now you can just like grab them, compose them together, and do other logic-y things with it. If you're concerned about performance, which this one isn't the greatest because it's not memoized, you can use a library called reselect. Just a heads up, this has nothing to do with, I mean, you would use it in a context like Redux, but you don't have to. It's not associated with Redux whatsoever. It's just a pattern that you can use. But the idea is when you feed it a object, you can write logic against it to transform the data to get what you want. And then you can compose them together, and these things are memoized, meaning that if you give it the same thing again, it will use the data it has in memory to as your result. So it won't recompute or recalculate again, which is important for performance. For now, since it's just a little thing, not a big deal. However, if you're writing, say, I don't know, a chat application where there's lots of data feeding in and out and you need to transform data in lots of crazy ways, check out reselect. Probably that'll come in handy. Const should use accent name is not the main accent and is a color accent. So we have this now. Accent green should not say anything, but when I click on tone from accent green, I should see this. Great, 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 great. Cool, everything is working except it's jumping up and down, which I kind of don't like, but there's not much I can do about that for now. It's kind of close to the bottom. I'm going to adjust that a little bit. So inside of my color info component, I have a component called positioner. This one just positions it. So let me change it to 2020. It's a little bit farther, a little bit nicer. All right. Yeah, so right now it's not mobile or you can't close it or whatever it is. It's fine. But I think we got the main thing completed. So we're able to basically, from scratch, compose, well, from scratch, mostly from scratch because I copied some of this code from other stuff, but mostly from scratch, code up this little box guy that pops up at the very, oh, shoot. My face has been covering this entire time. I apologize. So we're able to code up this little guy that appears at the very bottom. And yeah, from scratch, from this chicken scratch drawing that I had in the beginning, we did it using Storybook to do the various UI development in real time. Focusing heavily on minor tiny UI bits, testing them in a dedicated UI environment, making sure everything is good, feeding it data so that it magically calculates hex codes, RGB, and all this kind of stuff, combining them together to create this larger component that tells you the title, the contrast score, the AAA rating or whatever it is to use dark text and the RGB, all from 2 or 3 bits of data. It knows how to render this. Now that we've done all that in Storybook, we can now check the integration into the main application, and it's working fine. And we've been testing this throughout, a bit in Storybook and a bit in the main application to make sure everything's working as we expect it to. And then once we have the UI bit, that's where things get fun, because now we know that the UI is more or less working 100% how we expect it to. We just need to feed it the data in order for it to do its thing. So now we can totally not worry about presentation anymore, which is great because Storybook, the development within Storybook has alleviated that kind of like mental burden and context switching and the need of doing a lot of context switching from us, which is wonderful. Now we just need to focus on the data side, where the data will be stored, how the data will be accessed, and how the data will be changed. So the data lives inside of App Provider. We're using React Context to be able to handle this. We have an global app provider that lives here. All I did was create some state using the new use state hook from React. Create current color, set current color. Very, very basic getter setter. And we're making that available throughout our entire application. And we have 2 bits of UI that subscribes to the new bits of context that we've created. The items that lives inside of these palettes, so every time I click on one of these things, something happens. It tries to update the little bit of data that lives inside of the main application up there. And with our new color info box, because it's paying attention to that guy, every single time that little bit of data changes, it re-renders itself based on that change to reflect the color that we selected. In this case, accent orange, accent yellow, and so on. And because the UI has already been created, it knows how to handle contrast score and all that kind of stuff. Once that data feeds through, it'll render just fine. And with that, we've created our brand new color info component from scratch in this live coding session, which took a little bit long. I apologize, but thank you so much for tuning in. If you were here for the entire ride, I applaud your patience. And if you're skipping through the video just bit by bit, totally fine. Hopefully you've learned something from this today. I think I have. I was able to practice live coding and little bits and bobs, and talk about component stuff, talk about design system stuff, which is something that I really, really love. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Catch you later. Oh boy, Inception time. All right. Okay, stop streaming. Okay.